Hey, what's up?
We have a problem.
We're already looking into it.
So you know about Molly snitching?
No, wait, what are you talking about?
What were you talking about? You weren't talking about Molly.
No, we've already interviewed her. Of course we know she's a liability.
What are you looking into then?
Well, if we're not talking about the same thing, then you don't know, and at this point I'd like to keep it that way. But what's the problem with Molly? What did she say?
I don't know who the hell told her to do what she did, but she had an interview with some detectives. I've never heard of them, but apparently they're investigating the murders.
What? Did she provide details about them?
Nope, but they called her, so obviously they've been tracking her.
She's weak.
I know. Maybe we need to...
What did she tell the investigators?
She said she didn't snitch, but I don't believe her. Apparently, they just wanted to go over her witness accounts, but they were telling her that there were multiple suspects and all.
I think they're on to her.
But how?
You and Demetrius lay low for a while. In fact, head out of town for a few months.
What? I'm not...
Emma, if you want to avoid prison time, do what I ask of you. I'll talk to Molly. In the meantime, you and your little boyfriend don't need to make matters worse.
Hey man, I need my money. I'm not going anywhere until that money is in my account.
You'll get the money, but if those detectives are tracking Molly, they've probably already gotten information about you guys. I wouldn't be surprised if they were somewhere near here taking photos of us.
Well, what do we have here? Seems Bonnie has a friend with a badge. That looks like the unmarked cruiser Moscow PD was driving that night as well. Oh yeah, John and Jane need to see this.
Really? Wait, how do I know you're not helping them? Huh?
Now you're paranoid like Molly. Get some sleep, then head out first thing in the morning. You'll get the money, trust me.
If I go down, I'm taking you with me, you fucker.
Have a nice night, Emma. Did anyone ever tell you you'd make a great model? Those detectives sure like to take photos of you.
I see how it goes. You fucks never change, and we're labeled the criminals. Fuck off.
Touché.
John, take a look at this.
What do you got here?
These are a few notes that Dan sent me. I think it's quite revealing.
Really? Hopefully those notes make up for that interview performance.
Yeah, he's a bit rough around the edges, but has great intuition. That's why he's on the team, right?
Yeah.
He's your prodigy.
Enough of the jokes. What did he find?
Well, he reviewed the witness accounts from Emily and Hunter.
All right, what's the review?
It's about the knife that Hunter had. Apparently, the knife was moved prior to Moscow PD entering the crime scene. Emily stated that she saw a knife on the steps heading towards the second floor as she came upstairs from the first floor. But when Moscow PD arrived and encountered Hunter in the home, the knife was on the table.
That definitely doesn't look good for those peers.
Emily's interview with Payne, she states that a knife was near the stairs. I thought about the setting, and is it possible that Hunter dropped the knife there after leaving Zana's bedroom?
It's possible, but then again, if he had dropped the knife, based on what he observed in Zana's bedroom, I would tend to think he would keep the knife. If he went to the kitchen to grab a knife to potentially encounter the masked man he was notified about, surely he would need that knife after seeing his deceased friends. If he was startled, then he would have dropped the knife near Zana's bedroom in disbelief, not near the stairs. Dropping it near the stairs, there's more of a conscious decision to drop it there, as opposed to being startled upon discovering the deceased peers near the bedroom. Something seems off here.
And of course, he never described that bloody scene. None of them did. But it was something pointed out about Emily's accounts prior to the murders that caught my attention. Emily said that she woke up around 1:30 a.m. and was up till about 3 a.m. Now, Dan researched the lady known as WSU Kim and her accounts. We know she spoke out publicly about what her daughter knew about that night.
Yeah, would love to speak to her.
Of course, she's a motor mouth. That would work in our favor. But Kim stated that her daughter was notified about the attacks and murders from someone else who had been in contact with one of those surviving housemates. Emily stated that her, quote, little had called her that morning about the previous night.
Now, which one would it be?
Well, little in that sorority, I'm assuming it was Dylan. And if we align Emily's accounts of being awake around 1:30 a.m. to 3 a.m., is it possible that it was Emily who had been notified about those murders around that time frame? One of the survivors obviously notified someone in the wee hours.
Interesting. What if What if they went to that home that night? The body cam footage showed several individuals running from the neighborhood around 3:12 a.m. Could this be the same group that was at the home later Sunday morning?
If Emily was up around 1:30 a.m., I think it's safe to say that she was in communication with Xana, who was her best friend, right? The same with Hunter and Ethan, but according to the audio from the Linda Lane apartments, Ethan was in danger around 2:20 a.m. as a female is heard screaming and a male is heard saying Ethan's name. Could this be Emily and Hunter witnessing Ethan being attacked?
You know what? I think that's highly likely.
In that audio, Ethan's name was clearly heard, so whoever that male was knew Ethan, of course.
I'll brief Dan. We need to perform a voice analysis.
Of who?
Hunter and Emily. Let's retire for the night. It's been a long day.
Yeah, I am a bit tired. Let's start fresh in the morning.
We need to make sure we have a line of communication with Molly, though. I think she's willing to talk. I'll be in the office a bit late. Have a few issues to deal with.
No problem. Have a good night.
Same to you.
Hello. What's up?
Oh, do I have some information for you guys?
What is it?
Emma has friends on the force,
Well, that's obvious.
but that friend was driving a silver Ford Fusion.
How do you know this?
Saw Emma talking to MPD in some apartments. I didn't see Demetrius, but Emma got out of a white Porsche to meet up with the officer. I took several photos of their interaction, then waited till they drove off to leave. The officer was acting weird, like he suspected someone was watching them.
Perhaps, but great work for a rookie.
Let me guess, I have to bring coffee in the morning.
Yep, strawberry cheesecake Danish for me and
Breakfast burrito for John, yeah, I know.
email me those photos. I'm heading to my office for a few minutes.
You got it. Talk later.
If Bonnie is working with Moscow PD, then this goes deeper down the rabbit hole. They're the pushers in town, and there are officers on the cartel's payroll. Molly is working for Bonnie and Clyde, so by default she's working with those crooked officers. Let's see something here. That DoorDash delivery appeared to be staged, and it was allegedly from Ethan's account. But Ethan had been assaulted and even deceased in that Linda Lane audio. And if he was there, Xana was likely there as well. Ordering burgers are not even a thought. Could it be? I think someone used the victim's phone to make that order, justifying the belief that they were alive at that time. And Molly simply delivered it to the address by the instructions of Bonnie and Clyde. The alleged time of death was in the 4 a.m. hour, but the audio evidence of Ethan being attacked around 2:20 a.m. proves that those murders occurred earlier. The so-called MPD school car was circling the neighborhood during this time frame. Didn't see the vehicle in surveillance, though, go figure. And if it was about an hour earlier, this is enough time to place an order with DoorDash and have it delivered around 4 a.m. I don't think it was Bethany or Dylan who did this. The perps in that home plotted this cunning strategy. Emily stated she was contacted by one of the housemates later that morning. This appears to be Dylan. It's highly likely that this same Emily was notified about the incident in real time that night as well. If Emily was awakened around 1:30 a.m. and didn't go back to sleep until 3 a.m., this is within the time frame that Ethan had been attacked, around 2:20 a.m. I don't think she went back to sleep around 3 a.m. This seems to be an attempt at an alibi. Emily claimed that her little called her later that morning. Now this would be Dylan. As the reports prove, she was the one who had called about the housemates and the masked man. So Dylan was Emily's little in the sorority. But according to the accounts of WSU Kim, her daughter had been notified about the incident, who was also a member of the sorority. The sorority sister contacted the boyfriend of a sister, and that news got to WSU Kim's daughter at some point. Now she claimed the surviving housemates were texting each other in real time during the attacks, but this was not revealed until the text messages were released, and that was years later. So how did WSU Kim know this? The only way she would know that is her daughter knew. Wait a minute. It was the boyfriend of the sorority sister who had been contacted. Hunter. Oh yeah, the boyfriend of Emily, who was a sorority sister of Xana, Madison, Bethany, and Dylan. It all makes sense now. I think those text messages are bogus. The real communication occurred around that 1:30 a.m. to 3 a.m. time frame. Ethan had been attacked. A male kept calling out to him. A female is heard screaming, OMG. This would be the time frame Emily and Hunter had been called, and they headed to that area. And this would prove with the high probability that they knew those housemates were murdered before sunrise. I need to get some sleep. There's a lot on the table.
Emily stated she saw a steak knife near the stairs on the second floor. If this was the same knife Hunter had, then why was it so far from the bedroom? I don't think he was startled and dropped the knife that far away from the bedroom. As soon as he saw the bodies, he would have dropped the knife near the bedroom. He came into the home, went upstairs, and he would have witnessed those bodies as soon as he turned to the west, heading upstairs, meaning he hadn't gone into the kitchen at this point to grab the knife. This doesn't add up. That knife was moved. The question is why. Let's see here. I went to Officer Nuna's location at the west bedroom on the second floor and passed a male in the living room, later identified as Hunter Johnson. Officer Nunes advised the female and male in the bedroom had blood on them and appeared to be beyond help. Yeah, Hunter would have witnessed this before even getting closer to the bedroom. As he arrived upstairs to the second floor, he saw Xana lying in her doorway. But there's also a report that had Ethan lying in the doorway next to the bathroom. Another report has him discovered deceased in Xana's bed. Was he dropped off in the doorway and the body was placed in her bed? Seems likely, and I think Hunter had something to do with that. The officer goes on to say he walked out of the bedroom toward Johnson and saw a clean steak knife on a beer pong table. According to Emily, when she went upstairs, that steak knife was on the floor near the stairs. Interesting. The officer goes on to inform Nunes that there was a knife on the table. Hunter told them that he got the steak knife from the kitchen because he arrived and saw the female on the bedroom floor covered in blood and did not know if there was anyone else present in the room. Johnson said he checked the room with the knife for protection. So after checking the room for protection, he then drops the knife on the floor? If he had gone upstairs first and everyone else was trailing, then he had gone to the kitchen to get the knife after discovering the deceased housemates. At some point, someone moved that knife from the floor to that table, and that table also looked a little too organized after a massacre in that home. But then we have the setting where Emily and Hunter had to have been informed about the attacks in either real time or shortly after. Ethan was behind those Queen Road apartments, somewhere in that rear parking lot region. If he was there, it's likely Xana was also there. Now, the audio of a female and a male in distress, who would they be? Because they know Ethan. I have a strong hunch that this was Emily and Hunter. And of course, they were involved in covering up and even staging that home later on for when law enforcement arrived. Based on the exhibit documents, they basically rehearsed the activity during discovery. In the exhibit, it explains that Hunter had told everyone to go outside and call 911. But in the actual audio, we hear Hunter tell everyone to get out, meaning he had already discovered the bodies. So why in the 911 audio is there a setting where he is discovering the bodies? I'm exhausted. Gotta get some sleep.
Officer Nunes and I walked to the first floor entrance with Hunter. I asked the females and Hunter if there was anyone else in the apartment, and they did not know. Well, this is a lie. There's no way they ignored the third floor. I told Officer Nunes the home was not secure, and we started to the process of clearing it. I wonder if they took the steak knife in as a potential weapon. Seems they ignored it. They cleared the home. Okay. Hunter then tells them they received a call from one of the housemates. Okay. He said he saw Xana on the floor in the bedroom, but did not see Ethan before grabbing the knife. So as it states here, Hunter saw Xana on the floor first, then went into the kitchen and returned with the knife. He then proceeds to the bedroom, and we assume as the girls are heading to the second floor, he stops them from coming up. But at this point, he had dropped the knife near the stairs? It seems a bit off to me. Before this, Hunter checked the pulse of Xana, but didn't check Ethan. Yet Ethan is his best friend. Why wouldn't he check to see if Ethan was alive? During the time frame the officers were in the home, that knife was picked up off the floor and placed on the table, and it appears they didn't collect the knife as evidence. You have 4 victims stabbed to death. The only item in the home that could be a potential weapon used is simply left on a table? Could Hunter be the killer of Ethan and Xana? It said that Ethan's throat was slashed. Hunter comes from that bedroom with a steak knife and then drops it on the floor. Maybe this happened earlier. Plenty of time to clean the knife, and then pretend it was going to be used to defend the home when he arrived, or came back later on. In the exhibit, Hunter goes upstairs and prevents the girls from coming up. He then tells them to leave the home and call 911.
But in the audio, during the call, they're back inside the home, and he's telling them to not come upstairs. He told them to get out and don't come inside. But this had already happened. And I would have to assume Hunter and Emily were already at the home earlier, which magnifies that steak knife even more. It would be at night, and that, shit, Hunter killed them? Ethan's throat being slashed seemed to be the final blow, as he was clearly beaten outside earlier. I think they dumped his body off near Xana's bedroom, in the hallway. He may have already been deceased. Then Hunter and others placed his body in the bed, slashed his throat, to make it appear he was murdered in his sleep. Xana's injuries indicated she tried to fight. Perhaps she was still alive after the initial attacks, and they decided to finish her off. Can't risk her surviving because she knew who the killers were. Maybe Hunter didn't plan it, but decided to finish Xana because it was too dangerous to let her survive. I could see that. That's enough for tonight. I'm beat.
Hey, Dan.
Good morning.
I did a bit of digging, and I was thinking, maybe Hunter killed Xana and Ethan.
Wow, that came out of nowhere. How'd you come to that conclusion? Is it about the knife?
Yeah, something is off about the arrival at that home. Emily said she was awakened around 1:30 a.m. and went back to sleep around 3 a.m. But we know Ethan's name was heard in that Linda Lane audio around 2:20 a.m. A male kept saying his name, and that female was screaming out. Clearly, Ethan was harmed or even severely beaten.
Or deceased. John called me about that. Wants me to perform voice analysis.
Exactly. It's possible that Emily and Hunter were there that night, during the altercation, and that changes the entire timeline of events, from their accounts. What are the chances that the best friends of Ethan and Xana were not physically there or weren't notified about Ethan being assaulted around 2 a.m.?
Ethan's mother said 2 a.m. is a dark hour. I think they knew he was attacked around that time.
WSU Kim, the lady that came out publicly to reveal what she was told, stated that her daughter was notified by peers by way of a sorority sister's boyfriend, who was notified by another sorority sister from the home. Emily was in the same sorority with both of the surviving housemates and best friends with one of the victims who was in the same sorority, being Xana. And of course, Hunter was best friends with the male victim, Ethan.
Do you think it was Hunter who was the boyfriend notified?
Yep, the boyfriend of the sorority sister, Emily.
So you believe they were involved?
I wouldn't say that exactly. It may be a bit more complex than that. Here's a theory that I've pondered since last night. I think Hunter and Emily was a part of covering up those murders, being there physically that night.
How exactly?
Well, the DoorDash delivery for Xana was staged. Remember, Ethan was attacked around 2:20 a.m., so I don't think Xana was thinking about burgers and fries in this predicament.
Yeah, that would be quite cruel.
At some point, I think Hunter and Emily were in Xana's bedroom, trying to figure out how to cover up the crime. Something tells me that Xana and Ethan were actually still alive, and this brings me to the steak knife at the crime scene.
Okay, I'm listening.
The scenario around 12 p.m., we just rewind the time back about 7 to 8 hours, with Hunter wielding a steak knife, heading to Xana's bedroom, and, well, he put them out of their misery.
Wow, that's spooky, Jane. I got chills.
I know it's a bit dreadful, but think about the scenario. You have Kaylee and Madison already deceased. Ethan and Xana are still alive after being brutally attacked. Could those peers risk them staying alive?
Interesting perspective.
There are so many conflicting reports about Ethan and Xana. In one report, Moscow PD didn't know their whereabouts from 9 p.m. to 1:45 a.m., which seems impossible since they had interviewed their peers immediately after the murders. Then you have the issue regarding 12 a.m. pizza. Then they go on to order Jack in the Crack hours later. And you have conflicting reports about where Ethan's body was discovered. In one scenario, Ethan was discovered outside of the bedroom in the hallway. In another, he was discovered in Xana's bed. This indicates that his body was placed in that bed.
So they would stage it like he was murdered in his sleep.
Exactly. Quite cunning. And we also have to factor in that group that was spotted running away from the neighborhood around 3:12 a.m.
So do you think Hunter and Emily helped bring Ethan's body back to the home and then what? They decided to take them?
That's the general scope. But of course, this is just a theory, Dan.
Sure. So, how does Bethany and Dylan fit into this equation? Do you think they were involved?
Bethany, not sure about her. The jury's still out on her. Dylan seems to be involved in some manner, at least the information suggests this. But the reason I come to this theory is due to the oddity regarding the time of discovery by Hunter and Emily. In the excerpt, it states that Hunter went upstairs with the girls trailing him. He had gone into the bedroom, then told them not to come up and everyone should get out of the home and call 911, right? But in the actual audio of the 911 call, they apparently have the same scenario, as Hunter tells them to get out, as dispatch had asked them to check the pulse of the victims. But he had already checked Xana's pulse, which is when he told them to get out of the home and call 911.
So, what? Was that like some sort of reenactment or something?
I mean, what else could it be? It had to be a reenactment. But I think the real-time scenario of Hunter discovering those victims was at night, not around 12 p.m.
It makes sense, especially to help cover up the murders. Ethan suffered a slash to the throat. Do you think
It's possible.
to make it appear someone else did it? But then Hunter would have literally murdered them then, right?
Yep, sad, but possibly true.
Where's John?
Oh, he had to take care of a few issues, more than likely something to do with his daughter. She's going through a divorce, you know.
Damn, hopefully everything works out. What about Molly? Should we attempt to reach out to her again?
Maybe, but knowing her, I'm sure she told Bonnie and Clyde. Hey, you should get started on that voice analysis. John might take the day off anyway.
Sure thing. Need anything? Oh, wait, lunch, right?
Yep.
All right, be back in about an hour.
But hey, keep your eyes open. I get the feeling Moscow PD may have the feds tracking us now.
Thanks for the heads up.
When Bethany called 911, dispatch wanted to know if Xana was still alive. This required them to go back into the home, but honestly, it sounded like they were already in the home. Nevertheless, Hunter is heard in the background telling them to get out. This scenario would be as if Hunter had just discovered the deceased housemates. And in this scenario, he wouldn't tell anyone to call 911 because they're already talking to dispatch in real time. So what scenario is the exhibit depicting then? It has Hunter arriving upstairs with the girls trailing. He discovers Xana on the floor, checks her pulse, and prevents everyone from coming upstairs. Then tells them to leave the home and call 911. In fact, his face was described as pale, as if he had seen a ghost. Now that's in the exhibit scenario, which contradicts the 911 audio scenario. The only conclusion here is that the same chain of events were simulated, or replicated to be more precise. This introduces the element of suspicion because there would be no need to replicate the discovery unless there is something conspiratorial. Hunter finished Xana and Ethan off, yes. He took the knife from the kitchen, finished Xana off, and slashed Ethan's throat to make it appear he was murdered in his sleep. Ethan was beaten earlier, around 2 a.m. Then his body was dropped off near Xana's bedroom. Those individuals running from the neighborhood around 3 a.m. either were the ones to drop the body off or involved in some manner. The timeline of events match. The audio clearly depicts a physical altercation or even a one-sided altercation. In fact, the way the male was pleading out to Ethan and the female heard screaming OMG, it's possible Ethan was already deceased or unconscious. So that time frame to when those individuals ran away from the neighborhood, well, it's highly likely they were involved. The security camera picked up a loud thud noise, which was deemed to be heard around 4 a.m. I think the time was actually around 3 a.m., the same time those individuals were spotted running from the neighborhood, dumped Ethan's body off, then ran away. But everyone knew it would look suspicious for his body to be there while everyone else was discovered deceased in their bedrooms, so they placed his body in Xana's bed. If he was discovered in the hallway, then he was clearly attempting to protect Xana, which would contradict the physical activity in the home. Could the male's blood DNA discovered on the stair rail be Hunter's? I believe this friendly fire occurred overnight, and then they literally planned how to deal with it later Sunday morning. Bethany and Dylan were definitely not asleep. Dylan had an outgoing call around 4:27 a.m., and there was no information who the contact was. Yet all other calls later on, the individuals were identified with initials. This appears to be to her big sister, Emily, that is. But they wouldn't identify it as Emily or Hunter around the time the murders had taken place. That would magnify the suspicions around the delay of calling 911 if Hunter and Emily were notified and at the home that night. And there we have it. They come to the home soon after. This would be shortly after the attacks which Ethan and Xana had survived. We can't leave them alive. They're our friends. We can't do this, Hunter. We have no choice. It's a bad situation. At least they will be together in peace. As for the knife being staged there later that morning, well, it's to give Hunter the image of attempting to protect everyone. It would be intentionally left at the crime scene. It justifies his so-called defender character to law enforcement. Moscow PD didn't even take that knife in for forensics analysis. A knife discovered on a table, 4 victims stabbed to death, and a male is the only one in the home claiming he used it in case the intruder was still inside? Hey, I used the knife to protect these girls in the home. Oh, okay, great job. You're a great friend. Whoa. I have to send my notes to John. This is definitely possible.